We heard you bought a penthouse. We'll move in and make peace, my son Ryan Michael Bennett and my daughter-in-law Brooke Stephanie Bennett said as they stood at my door. After 6 months of throwing me out like an animal, now they wanted to come back. I'm Lori Ann Harrison, 66 years old. I said, come in. Then what they saw when they stepped inside left them frozen. But I'm getting ahead of myself. To understand why that moment felt so sweet, you need to know where I started. You need to know what they did to me. If you're listening from somewhere far away, drop your city in the comments so I can see how far this has traveled. And please, stay with me until the end. For 45 years, I was the proper wife, the devoted mother, the woman who sacrificed everything and asked for nothing in return. I married Robert James Harrison on June 12, 1980, when I was 21 years old. He was 23, fresh out of college with a degree in civil engineering and dreams bigger than our tiny Seattle apartment. We built our life together at 847 Oakwood Drive, a modest 3-bedroom house in the Greenwood neighborhood. Robert worked for the city's Department of Transportation. I stayed home, raised our son Ryan, kept the house spotless, cooked every meal from scratch. I did the bookkeeping, paid the bills on time every month, managed every detail of our domestic life. People always said I was lucky to have Robert. He was handsome, dependable, a good provider. What they didn't say was that Robert was lucky to have me, but I never needed them to say it. I knew my worth, even if I kept it quiet. Ryan was born on March 8, 1982. From the moment they placed him in my arms at Swedish Medical Center, I knew my life would never be the same. I was right, but not in the way I imagined. I raised that boy with every ounce of love I had. I stayed up all night when he had croup at age 4. I helped him with every science project, drove him to every soccer practice, attended every parent-teacher conference. When he graduated from Roosevelt High School in 2000, I cried harder than anyone in that auditorium. Robert died of a massive heart attack on January 15, 2024, at the age of 67. He collapsed in the driveway while bringing in groceries. The coroner said he was dead before he hit the ground. No suffering, they told me, as if that made it easier. It didn't. The house became a tomb. Every corner whispered his name. The armchair where he read the Sunday paper. The workshop in the garage where he fixed everything. The side of the bed that stayed cold. In the first months after the funeral, Ryan and Brooke visited regularly. They'd been married for 4 years by then. They got married on September 3, 2020, a small ceremony at a vineyard in Woodinville. Brooke was beautiful that day in her ivory dress, her blonde hair perfect, her smile radiant. "We're family, Mom," Ryan said during one of those early visits, hugging me tight. "You'll never be alone. We'll always be here for you." I believed him. The visits started to change around April 2024, subtly at first. Ryan would check his phone constantly during our conversations. Brooke would glance at her watch, then whisper something to Ryan. They'd leave earlier than planned, citing work deadlines, dinner plans, errands. By May, they were coming once every 2 weeks instead of weekly. By June, once a month. By July, I was calling them. "Hi, honey, it's Mom. Just wanted to see how you two are doing. Maybe we could have dinner this weekend?" "Can't this weekend, Mom. Brooke has a work thing." "Next weekend? I'll check our calendar and get back to you." He never got back to me. When I did reach Brooke on the phone, her tone was clipped, impatient. "I'm busy, Lori. Can this wait?" She was the only person who called me by my first name instead of Mom. I tried not to let it bother me. I started to feel it then, that sinking sensation of becoming irrelevant, of transforming from mother to burden. But I told myself I was being paranoid. They were young, busy, building their careers. Brooke worked in marketing at a tech startup. Ryan had landed a good job as a project manager at Cascade Construction Company. They had lives. I understood that. Or at least I tried to. September 14th, 2024. 6 months ago. The most humiliating day of my life. It was a Saturday morning, around 10:30 a.m. I was in the kitchen making coffee when I heard the doorbell. My heart lifted. I hadn't seen Ryan and Brooke in 3 weeks. I opened the door with a smile. The smile died on my face. Ryan stood there in dark jeans and a button-down shirt, holding a manila folder thick with papers. No hug, no greeting. His expression was cold, businesslike. Behind him, Brooke wore a sleek red dress that probably cost more than I spent on groceries in a month. Her hair was styled in perfect waves, her makeup flawless. She looked at me the way you'd look at a cockroach. "Mom, we need to talk," Ryan said flatly, stepping inside without being invited. "Of course, honey. Come in. Can I get you some—" "This won't take long," Brooke interrupted, her voice sharp. We stood in the living room. They didn't sit down. That's when I knew something was very wrong. "Mom," Ryan began, not meeting my eyes. "Brooke is pregnant. 12 weeks. We need more space." My heart soared for a split second. "Oh, Ryan, that's wonderful. A grandchild. I can help with the baby. I can—" "This house is too big for one person," he cut me off. "You need to move out." The words hit me like a physical blow. "What?" Brooke stepped forward, one hand resting on her still flat belly. "It means you have to leave, Lori. We're moving in here. You can find a smaller apartment, something more appropriate for a woman your age, something you can actually afford." I stared at them, certain I'd misheard. "But this is my house. I lived here with your father for—" "Legally," Ryan said, opening the folder. "This house is mine too. Dad added my name to the deed in 2019. Remember? To avoid probate issues when he died?" I did remember. Robert had been so proud of himself for thinking ahead, for making things easier for me. He'd told me it was just a formality, a legal technicality. I never imagined my own son would use it as a weapon. "Ryan, please. This place holds all our family's memories. Your childhood, your father and I—" "Memories don't pay property taxes," Brooke snapped. "And they certainly don't help us prepare for a baby." I turned to my son, searching his face for any trace of the boy I'd raised. "Don't do this to me. I'm your mother. I sacrificed my whole life for you. I gave up everything to raise you, to support you." Brooke laughed. Actually laughed. It was a cruel, mocking sound that made my skin crawl. "Enough, Lori. Stop playing the victim. You've been a burden your whole life. You never worked a day. You never contributed anything meaningful. Robert knew it too. He just didn't have the guts to say it to your face." The room tilted. My vision blurred. She was trampling on the memory of my husband, the man who'd loved me, who'd built this life with me. "You have 1 week to pack your things," Ryan said, still avoiding my eyes. "After that, we're changing the locks." "1 week?" I whispered. "Where am I supposed to go? I don't have enough money to—" "That's not our problem," Brooke said, stroking her belly like it was a shield. "This baby needs a stable home. You understand, don't you? As a mother? The cruelty of using motherhood, my own identity, against me was breathtaking." "Ryan?" I tried one more time, my voice breaking. "Please, son, please don't do this." For a moment, just a flicker, I thought I saw something in his eyes. Doubt, maybe. Shame. But Brooke placed her hand on his arm, and whatever I'd seen vanished. "We'll be back next Saturday to move our things in," he said. "Make sure you're gone by then." They left. I stood in the middle of my living room, my home for 45 years, and collapsed onto the floor. I cried until I couldn't breathe, until my ribs ached, until I had nothing left. The next 7 days were a nightmare. I called Ryan's cell phone 43 times. He never answered. I left voicemails begging, pleading, trying to reason with him. Nothing. I texted Brooke. "Please, I just want to talk. I'm the baby's grandmother. Can we work something out?" Her reply came 6 hours later. "Stop bothering us. We don't want anything to do with you." I had $1,847 in my checking account. Robert's pension had been modest, and most of it had gone to medical bills and the funeral. I had no career, no job prospects. Who hires a 66-year-old woman whose last employment was as a bank teller in 1979? I started packing. 45 years of life into cardboard boxes. The wedding china my mother gave us. Robert's favorite flannel shirts that still smelled like him. Photo albums chronicling a life that apparently meant nothing to my son. 6 boxes. That's what remained of Lori Ann Harrison. On September 21st, 2024, I set the house keys on the kitchen table with a note. "Be happy." I called a taxi and gave the driver an address I'd found online. The Skyway Motor Inn, a rundown motel in South Seattle. The room cost $47 per night, the cheapest I could find. It was on the 2nd floor, accessed by an exterior staircase that shook when I climbed it. Room 2B. The door stuck when I tried to open it. Inside, a double bed with a sagging mattress and stained floral bedspread, a small bathroom with cracked tiles, a window overlooking the dumpsters in the alley. The walls were thin enough that I could hear every conversation, every argument, every intimate moment from the rooms beside me. The shared bathroom down the hall serviced 5 rooms. There was mold in the corners of the shower. This was my new home. At night, there were fights in the parking lot, music blaring until 3 a.m., police sirens, the smell of marijuana and stale beer seeping under my door. I tried to sleep, but the bed was uncomfortable and the sounds were endless. I'd lie there staring at the water stains on the ceiling, wondering where I'd gone wrong. When had Ryan become capable of such cruelty? What had I done to deserve this? I called Ryan again, and again, and again. Voicemail. Every time. I walked to the neighborhood grocery store, a rundown place called Save Mart, and bought the cheapest food I could find. Day-old bread for $1.29. Dented cans of soup for 89 cents. Bruised apples from the discount bin. Within a month, I'd lost 11 pounds. My clothes hung loose. My face looked gaunt and gray in the mirror. I looked for work. I walked into every store, every restaurant, every office within a 2-mile radius of the motel. Do you have any experience? Not recently, but I'm a quick learner. I'm reliable. We need someone with current experience. Sorry. Or the more honest version. You're a bit, well, we're looking for someone younger. By October, I had $723 left in my account. October 19th, 2024. A Friday. I was walking past Northgate Mall, trying to make my daily walk last long enough that I wouldn't have to go back to that awful room for a few more hours. That's when I saw Brooke. She was coming out of Bye Bye Baby, carrying 4 large shopping bags with the store's logo. Her belly had grown. She was about 5 months along by then. She wore a camel-colored coat that looked expensive, leather boots, designer sunglasses. She looked radiant, healthy, happy. She walked to a silver Mercedes-Benz SUV I'd never seen before, brand new from the look of it. I ran toward her, my heart pounding. Brooke! Brooke, wait! She turned and saw me, the look on her face, pure disgust, like I was something filthy that had stepped into her path. I knew how I looked. My coat was an old thing from Goodwill, stained at the cuff. My shoes were worn through at the heels. My hair, once carefully styled, was gray and unwashed. What are you doing here? She asked, glancing around as if afraid someone might see her talking to me. I just wanted to know how you are, how the baby is. I'm going to be a grandmother, and I thought maybe we could— My child is fine, she said coldly, and will stay fine as long as they stay far away from you. Please, Brooke, just let me— She climbed into the Mercedes and slammed the door. The engine started. I stood there on the sidewalk as she drove away, leaving me in a cloud of exhaust. People stared at me. An old woman in dirty clothes talking to herself in a parking lot. That night I sat on the edge of that terrible bed in room 2B and made a decision. I would not beg anymore. I would not humiliate myself for scraps of affection from people who saw me as worthless. If they wanted to treat me as if I were dead, then I would be dead to them. But fate, as always, had other plans. October 27th, 2024. I was cleaning out the last box I'd brought from the house. A box I'd been avoiding because it contained Robert's personal items. His watch, his reading glasses, the paperback mysteries he loved. At the bottom, wrapped in old newspaper, I found a stack of letters tied with string. Letters in Robert's handwriting. My hands shook as I untied the string and opened the first envelope. My beloved Lori, if you're reading this, it means I'm no longer with you. There are things I never said. Secrets I kept to protect you, but now you need to know everything. I could barely breathe. Before I met you, I worked in real estate for 3 years while finishing my engineering degree. With my savings and a few risky investments, I bought 12 plots of land on the outskirts of Seattle, areas that were dirt cheap in the mid-1970s because they were so far from everything. I thought maybe one day they'd be worth something. Then time passed, we got married, had Ryan, and I honestly forgot about them. I didn't mention it because I didn't want you to worry about money that might never materialize. The paperwork is in a safe deposit box at First Puget Sound Bank, box number 1247. The key is taped behind our wedding photo. Lori, if anything has happened to me, those plots are probably worth a fortune now. The city has grown, shopping centers and apartment buildings have been built in those areas. Everything I once dreamed might happen has come true. You are the strongest woman I've ever known. Stronger than you think. If anyone ever hurts you, remember you have the strength to defend yourself. Signed, the husband who always admired you, Robert James Harrison. The letter fell from my hands. I grabbed the wedding photo from the top of the dresser, a small framed picture I'd carried with me. I turned it over. There, under yellowed tape, was a small brass key. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might burst. I kept reading. Robert had documented everything. Lot numbers, exact locations, surveys, old maps. 12 parcels of land. 4.2 acres at the corner of 145th Street and Aurora Avenue North. 2.8 acres on Greenwood Avenue near 175th. 6.1 acres near what was now the Shoreline Community College. And 9 more, all in areas that had exploded in value over the past 40 years. There were photographs dated 1974 showing empty fields and dirt roads. Receipts showing he'd paid between $800 and $2,300 for each parcel. The last letter was dated June 3rd, 2023, 6 months before he died. I had the properties appraised last week. The total value is approximately $2,400,000. $2,400,000. I read it again and again. I was a millionaire. I had been living in this disgusting motel, eating garbage, begging my son for scraps of love while sitting on a fortune that could change everything. You were never left unprotected, Robert had written. You are stronger than you think. I hugged the letters to my chest and cried. But this time, they weren't tears of despair. They were tears of rage. And something else. Power. October 28th, 2024, 9:47 a.m. I stood outside First Puget Sound Bank on Roosevelt Way, the brass key clutched in my hand. I'd barely slept. The letters were in my purse, along with my ID and the wedding photo. The bank was a solid brick building that had stood there since the 1960s. Robert had banked here for 40 years. I took a deep breath and walked through the glass doors. A young man at the front desk, his nameplate read Marcus Chen, looked up with a professional smile. "Good morning. How can I help you?" "I need to access a safe deposit box." My voice came out steadier than I expected. "Box number 1247. He typed into his computer, then looked up at me. "May I see your identification, please?" I handed over my driver's license with shaking hands. He studied it, then checked his screen again. "Mrs. Harrison, this box hasn't been accessed in over 2 years. Are you certain it's yours?" "It belonged to my husband, Robert James Harrison. He passed away in January." Something shifted in his expression. Sympathy, recognition. "I'm so sorry for your loss. Mr. Harrison was a valued customer for many years. Please, follow me." He led me through a heavy door into a small private room with a table and 2 chairs. A few minutes later, he returned carrying a long metal box. "Take all the time you need," he said quietly, and left me alone. My hands trembled as I inserted the key. The lock clicked. I lifted the lid. Inside were stacks of documents in labeled folders. Property deeds, blue folder. Surveys and maps, green folder. Appraisals, red folder. Bank information, yellow folder. And 1 sealed envelope with my name written in Robert's handwriting. "For my warrior, when you discover who you really are." I opened it with trembling fingers. Inside was a letter and a recent appraisal dated May 15th, 2023. "My darling Lori, if you've found this, something has happened to me and you needed to find your strength. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you about this while I was alive. You would have insisted we sell everything and give it all to Ryan. That's who you are, generous to a fault. But I knew that one day you might need this protection. The world isn't always kind to widows, especially ones who spent their lives caring for others instead of building careers. The properties are worth $2,400,000 as of this appraisal. But Lori, that was last year. With how fast Seattle is growing, they're probably worth much more now. Everything is in your name alone. I made sure of that. Ryan has no legal claim to any of it. Be strong. Be smart. And remember, you are not the helpless woman people assume you to be. All my love, Robert." I pressed the letter to my chest and let myself cry one more time. But these tears were different. They were tears of gratitude, of determination, of resurrection. I photographed every document with my phone. 12 property deeds, 12 surveys, 3 separate appraisals from different firms, bank account information showing Robert had been collecting lease payments from 2 of the properties, payments that had been automatically deposited into an account I didn't know existed, an account that currently held $43,287. $43,000. Just sitting there. While I'd been eating day-old bread and sleeping in a roach motel, I took the entire box with me. "I'll need to access this again," I told Marcus. "Can I take these documents home?" "Of course, Mrs. Harrison. You're the box owner now. Everything in it belongs to you." I walked out of that bank a different woman than the one who'd walked in. I moved out of the Skyway Motor Inn that afternoon. Using the $43,287, I checked into the Silver Cloud Hotel in the University District. Room 412, clean sheets, a real shower, a window with an actual view. It cost $159 per night, and I didn't care. For the first time in weeks, I slept soundly. The next morning, October 29th, I sat in the hotel restaurant with coffee and a real breakfast, eggs, toast, fruit, and made a plan. I opened a new notebook and wrote, "What I know. Ryan and Brooke took the house at 847 Oakwood Drive. Brooke is 5 months pregnant, due approximately February 2025. They're spending money freely, new Mercedes, expensive baby items. They believe I have nothing. What I need to know, their exact financial situation, the mortgage status on my house, what they've told people about me, their vulnerabilities, what they don't know. I have $2.4 million in property. I have $43,287 in cash. I have documentation of everything. I'm not broken. I'm planning." For the next week, I watched them from a distance. On October 30th, I drove past 847 Oakwood Drive at 7:15 a.m. Ryan was leaving for work in his old Ford F-150. He looked tired, stressed. Good. At 2:30 p.m., I saw Brooke leaving the house in the Mercedes. I followed her, carefully, staying 3 cars back like they do in movies. She went to a prenatal yoga class at a upscale studio called Bloom Wellness, then to Whole Foods, where she spent 43 minutes shopping and came out with 5 bags of groceries. I watched from my car as she loaded the bags into her Mercedes. Organic produce, expensive cuts of meat, artisanal bread, things I could never afford when I lived there. On November 1st, I returned to the neighborhood and spoke with Mrs. Benita Rodriguez, my former next-door neighbor at 849 Oakwood Drive. She was 72, sharp as a tack, and had lived there for 35 years. "Lori," she pulled me into a hug on her front porch. "My God, where have you been? I've been so worried." "Long story, Benita. Can we talk?" Over tea in her kitchen, I asked carefully, "Have you spoken with Ryan and Brooke?" Her face darkened. "Those 2. Lori, I don't want to speak ill, but they've been difficult neighbors. Music late at night, trash bins left out. Last week they had a screaming argument in the driveway at 11 p.m. I heard every word." "What were they fighting about?" "Money. Brooke was yelling about bills, about how they can't afford everything. Ryan was yelling back about her quitting her job. It was ugly." I filed that information away. "Have they said anything about me?" Benita hesitated. "Ryan told me that you decided to move to a retirement community, that you wanted something smaller, easier to manage." She looked at me carefully. "But that's not true, is it?" "No, Benita, it's not. I didn't think so. You loved that house. Robert built that life with you. You would never leave it willingly." She reached across and took my hand. "What did they do?" "They threw me out, told me they needed the space for the baby, gave me 1 week to leave." Benita's face went red with anger. "Those ungrateful, after everything you did for that boy. Lori, that's elder abuse. You could press charges." "I could," I said calmly, "but I'm going to do something better." November 4th, 2024, I hired a real estate attorney named James David Alonzo. His office was in downtown Seattle, on the 42nd floor of the Columbia Center. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Elliott Bay. Expensive furniture. Law degrees from Stanford. He was 58, silver-haired, with a reputation for discretion and ruthless efficiency. "Mrs. Harrison," he said, shaking my hand firmly, "your call intrigued me. You mentioned properties you'd like to liquidate?" 12 parcels, I said, laying out the documents. I need to sell some of them quickly but quietly. I don't want the sales traced back to me. He studied the deeds, the surveys, the appraisals. His eyebrows rose. Mrs. Harrison, do you understand what you have here? Money? No. He looked at me seriously. You have power. These properties. Let me make some calls. I'll have current appraisals done within 48 hours. The appraisals came back on November 6th. The 12 properties were now worth $3,100,000, $700,000 more than Robert's last appraisal. In just 18 months, the value had increased by nearly 30%. I recommend we sell 4 of the smaller parcels immediately, James said. They're in areas with current development interest. The remaining 8 we hold as long-term investments. They'll only increase in value. How much would the 4 parcels bring? He slid a paper across his desk. Conservative estimate, $850,000, possibly as much as $975,000 if we find the right buyers. I felt dizzy. How quickly? I have buyers who've been looking for land in these exact areas. If you're willing to sell slightly below market value for a fast cash close, we could have the money in your account within 3 weeks. Do it, but I need the sales to go through a corporate entity, nothing that traces back to me directly. James smiled. I can set up an LLC today. How does Harbor Investments Group sound? Perfect. On November 8th, Harbor Investments Group LLC was established, with James Alonzo as the registered agent. I was the sole owner, but my name appeared nowhere on public documents. On November 12th, we accepted offers on 4 parcels. 2.8 acres on Greenwood Avenue, $187,000, 3.1 acres near Lake City, $215,000, 2.2 acres in Shoreline, $198,000, 4.7 acres in Northgate, $289,000. Total $889,000. The closings were scheduled for November 27th, the day before Thanksgiving. While waiting for the sales to close, I hired a private investigator. His name was David Michael Torres, a former Seattle police detective who now ran a private firm called Torres Investigative Services. His office was modest but professional in a building in the Fremont neighborhood. I need information on 2 people, I told him on November 13th. Complete financial background, employment, debts, assets, everything. I gave him Ryan and Brooks' full names, dates of birth, social security numbers. I still had Ryan's from when I'd helped him apply for college, and the Oakwood Drive address. Is this for a legal matter? He asked. Potentially. Understood. Give me 1 week. He called me back on November 20th. Mrs. Harrison, I have your report. Would you like me to email it, or would you prefer to meet in person? In person? We met at a coffee shop near Green Lake. He slid a manila folder across the table. Your son and daughter-in-law are in serious financial trouble, he said quietly. I opened the folder. Inside were bank statements, credit reports, mortgage documents, and employment records. The details made my blood run cold. Ryan Michael Bennett, fired from Cascade Construction on October 7, 2024, for repeated tardiness and insubordination, filed for unemployment benefits on October 10th. Previous salary, $4,800 per month. Current income, $1,200 per month. Unemployment. Credit card debt, $23,450 across 4 cards. Auto loan on Ford F-150, $18,200 remaining. Average credit score, 612. Brooke Stephanie Bennett. Quit position at Tech Vista Marketing on August 30th, 2024. Previous salary, $5,200 per month. Current income, $0. Credit card debt, $31,890 across 6 cards. Auto loan on Mercedes, GLE 350, $52,100 remaining. Purchased September 15th, 2024. Average credit score, 591 joint obligations. Mortgage on 847 Oakwood Drive, $287,500 remaining. Monthly mortgage payment, $2,140. Currently 3 months behind, $6,420 in arrears. Foreclosure notice filed by Olympic National Bank on November 15th, 2024. I stared at the numbers. They had taken my house and were losing it. They'd bought a $65,000 Mercedes they couldn't afford. They were drowning in credit card debt, and they had treated me like I was worthless. "There's more," David said. "The bank that holds their mortgage, Olympic National Bank, is in financial difficulty itself. They're selling off non-performing loans to reduce their portfolio." "How do you know this?" "I have a contact who works there. The mortgage on 847 Oakwood Drive is on their priority sale list. They want to unload it quickly." An idea crystallized in my mind. If someone wanted to buy that mortgage, how would they do it? David studied me for a long moment. "You'd need to make an offer through an investment company. The bank would prefer to sell to an institutional buyer rather than an individual. It would need to be confidential, professional. Could Harbor Investments Group purchase it? With the right offer and the right attorney handling it? Absolutely." I smiled for the first time in that entire conversation. "Please send me your contact's information at the bank." November 27th, 2024. The 4 property sales closed. $889,000 was deposited into Harbor Investments Group's business account at First Puget Sound Bank. Combined with the $43,287 I discovered earlier, I now had $932,287 in liquid assets, plus 8 remaining properties worth approximately $2,200,000. My total net worth, just over $3,100,000. The woman they'd thrown out as worthless was a multimillionaire. On November 29th, Black Friday, James Alonzo called me. "Lori, I spoke with Olympic National Bank. They're motivated to sell the mortgage on 847 Oakwood Drive. Current balance is $287,500, but it's non-performing. They'll take $245,000 for it." That's a $42,500 discount? They want it off their books. It's costing them money in legal fees and administrative costs. If we offer $245,000 cash with a 7-day close, they'll take it. Do it. On December 6th, 2024, Harbor Investments Group, LLC purchased the mortgage on 847 Oakwood Drive for $245,000 cash. Ryan and Brooke now owed me the remaining $287,500 on the house. They had no idea. As far as they knew, they still owed Olympic National Bank. But the bank had sent them a letter on December 9th. "Your mortgage has been sold to Harbor Investments Group. All future payments should be directed to..." I imagined them reading that letter, confused but not alarmed. Why would they be? It was just corporate paperwork. Banks sold mortgages all the time. They didn't know Harbor Investments Group was me. On December 10th, I instructed James to hire a collections agency, a legitimate licensed firm called Premier Collections Northwest, to begin recovery proceedings. The first letter went out on December 11th. "Dear Mr. and Mrs. Bennett, this letter is to inform you that your mortgage account, currently $6,420 in arrears, has been acquired by Harbor Investments Group. We are authorized to collect this debt on their behalf. You have 15 days to bring your account current or contact us to arrange a payment plan. Failure to respond will result in acceleration of the full loan amount and foreclosure proceedings. Sincerely, Premier Collections Northwest." I also hired someone to do something more personal. On December 13th, I paid an actor named Marcus Shaw, a 58-year-old man who looked trustworthy and grandfatherly, to accidentally run into Ryan at a gas station. I'd been following Ryan's patterns. Every Thursday evening, he filled up his truck at the Chevron station on 85th and Aurora Avenue. Marcus approached him while he was pumping gas. "Ryan? Ryan Bennett?" Ryan looked up, confused. "Yes?" "My God, I thought that was you." "Marcus Shaw. I used to work with your dad at the Department of Transportation. I'm so sorry about Robert. He was a good man." Ryan's face softened slightly. "Thank you. Yeah, it's been tough. How's your mother doing, Lori, right? I heard she moved?" Ryan shifted uncomfortably. She's fine. Downsized to something more manageable." "Good, good. You know, I ran into someone who said they saw her at Summit Tower. You know, those new luxury condos downtown? But that can't be right. Those penthouses go for what, $2 million?" Marcus laughed like it was absurd. Ryan's face went white. "Summit Tower? Must have been someone else. No way Lori could afford that, right? Anyway, great seeing you." Marcus walked away, leaving Ryan standing there, stunned. According to Marcus's report, Ryan stood frozen for a full minute before getting in his truck. The seed of doubt was planted. Over the next week, I had 3 more coincidental encounters arranged. A woman at Whole Foods mentioned to Brooke that she'd seen someone who looked just like Ryan's mother getting into a Tesla at Summit Tower. A former neighbor casually asked Ryan's old high school friend, "Did Ryan's mom win the lottery or something?" A server at the restaurant where Brooke sometimes had lunch said, "Oh, are you related to Lori Harrison? I saw her last week wearing a Burberry coat. Beautiful woman." Each planted seed grew. On December 18th, David Torres confirmed they were asking questions. Ryan had called 3 people asking if they'd seen me. Brooke had searched my name on social media. They were investigating me. Perfect. On December 20th, 2024, I did something bold. I bought a penthouse at Summit Tower. Not because I needed it. The hotel was fine. But because I needed the symbol, the proof, the undeniable evidence that I was not the broken, penniless widow they'd imagined. The penthouse was Unit 4207 on the 42nd floor. 3 bedrooms, 3.5 bathrooms, 2,800 square feet. Floor-to-ceiling windows with panoramic views of Puget Sound, the Olympic Mountains, and downtown Seattle. Purchase price, $1,850,000. I paid $1,100,000 cash and financed the remaining $750,000 through Harbor Investments Group at a favorable rate. The mortgage payment was $3,200 per month, more than I'd ever paid for anything in my life. But I had rental income from the remaining properties, plus the settlements from the land sales. I could afford it comfortably. More importantly, it made a statement. I hired an interior designer, a woman named Patricia Ann Kim, who specialized in understated luxury. I gave her a budget of $85,000 in 3 weeks. "I want elegant, not flashy," I told her. "I want it to say, this woman has taste, education, resources. Not new money, quiet power." Patricia delivered. Cream leather sofas, glass and steel tables, original artwork from local Seattle artists, bookshelves filled with hardbacks, a kitchen with sub-zero appliances and marble countertops, soft lighting that made everything glow. On the walls, black and white photographs of Pike Place Market, the Space Needle, Puget Sound at sunset. On the terrace, comfortable furniture, planters with evergreens, a gas fireplace. It was beautiful, sophisticated. Everything Brooke had probably dreamed of having. And it was mine. On January 2nd, 2025, I moved in. I stood on that terrace at sunset, looking out over the city where I'd spent my entire life, and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Freedom, January 14th, 2025. 10:47 a.m. My phone rang. Unknown number. I let it ring 3 times before answering. "Hello? Mom?" Ryan's voice was small, uncertain. "It's me." I waited. "Mom, we need to talk. About everything." "What specifically, Ryan?" A pause. "We heard that you're living at Summit Tower. Is that true?" "Where did you hear that?" "People have been talking, saying they've seen you. Is it true?" I looked out at the view from my penthouse windows. "Yes." Silence on the line. When he spoke again, his voice was shaking. "How? How is that possible? When you left, you didn't have what, Ryan? Money, value, worth?" "No, I didn't mean—" "You meant exactly that. You and Brooke decided I was a worthless old woman who had nothing to offer except the house I could be thrown out of. You were wrong." "Mom, please, things are really bad right now. I lost my job. We're behind on everything. The bank, someone bought our mortgage and they're threatening foreclosure. Brooke is 7 months pregnant and we don't know what to do." The desperation in his voice was real. "Good. And you're calling me because you're my mother. Because we need help. Because—" His voice broke. "Because we made a terrible mistake." "You made several terrible mistakes, Ryan. Which one are you referring to?" "All of them. Throwing you out. The things Brooke said. Treating you like you didn't matter. Mom, I'm sorry. We're both sorry." "Are you sorry because you hurt me? Or sorry because now you need something from me?" Another long pause. "Both. I know that's not the right answer, but it's the truth." At least he was being honest. "Where's Brooke?" "Here, next to me. She wants to talk to you." There was fumbling, then Brooke's voice, tearful and shaking. "Lori, I know I have no right to ask, but please, please help us. The baby is due in 6 weeks. We're going to lose the house. We have nowhere to go. I'll do anything. Apologize to anyone. Whatever you want. I closed my eyes. Part of me, the part that was still a mother, wanted to say yes immediately, to fix everything, to make it all better. But I'd learned something in these past months. Love without boundaries is just enabling, and they needed to learn the price of their cruelty. I need to think about this, I said calmly. This isn't a decision I can make in one phone call. Please don't make us wait too long, Brooke pleaded. We don't have time. You didn't give me time either, Brooke. You gave me 1 week. Remember? Silence. I'll call you in 3 days. Don't call me before then. I hung up, and for the first time since this nightmare began, I smiled. The game had changed, and I was the one holding all the cards. Part hai huan tang. Da follow sat outline vikek yuto. Week-by-week investigation structure. Escalating numbers. Bomoy bangin. Hai chum tamoy bay dola. Din tam chum tamoy chingin dola. Din chin chum bamoy haingin. Hai chum tamoy bay dola. Din bachio mo chumgin dola total. Professional confirmations. Attorney. Private investigator. Collections agency. Evidence gathering. Bank statements. Property deeds. Financial reports. Strategic planning va setting traps. Get tuk vai Ryan Brooke. Guardian Ko Sin San Sang Viet Part Ba, he ban confirm. January 17th, 2025. 3 days after Ryan's call, exactly as I'd promised. I called him back at 2 p.m. He answered on the first ring. Mom? Hello, Ryan. I've thought about your situation. I'm willing to meet with you and Brooke to discuss it. I could hear the relief in his voice. Thank you. Thank you so much. When can we? Tomorrow. Saturday, January 18th, 2:00 p.m. Come to my home. Your home? You mean Summit Tower, Unit 4207, the penthouse on the 42nd floor. Come to the private elevator in the lobby and call up. I'll send it down for you. Silence. Then quietly. Okay, we'll be there. One condition, Ryan. Anything. No lying. When you come here, you tell me the complete truth about everything. Your finances, your situation, what you've told people about me. Everything. If I catch you in a single lie, this conversation ends, and you'll never hear from me again. I understand. I promise. We'll see if your promises mean anything. 2:00. Don't be late. I hung up. Then I prepared. January 18th, 2025. 12 p.m. I had 2 hours before they arrived. I hired a catering service, Cascade Gourmet, to prepare an elegant lunch. Tea. Not flashy, but refined. The kind of meal that said, I have resources, taste, and I don't need to prove anything. Poached salmon with dill sauce, arugula salad with candied walnuts and goat cheese, fresh sourdough bread from the artisan bakery in Pike Place Market, sparkling water with cucumber and mint, French macarons for dessert. Cost $340 for 3 people. I set the table on the terrace overlooking the city. White linens, simple but elegant place settings. A small vase with fresh white roses. In the living room, I arranged the documents. On the glass coffee table, I placed a leather portfolio containing the mortgage documents showing Harbor Investments Group now owned their debt. Bank statements showing their $6,420 in arrears. The private investigator's report on their financial situation. Property deeds for the 8 remaining land parcels I owned. My bank statements showing $687,287 in liquid assets after the penthouse purchase and furnishing. A contract I'd had James Alonzo prepare. Everything was in order. At 1:45 p.m., I changed into a tailored cream pantsuit from Nordstrom, $485. Simple pearl earrings that had been my mother's, and low heels. I checked my appearance in the mirror. I looked like what I was, a woman who had power and knew how to use it. At 1:58 p.m., the lobby called. Mrs. Harrison, you have visitors. A Mr. and Mrs. Bennett? Send them up, please. I stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, my back to the elevator, looking out over Seattle. I wanted the first thing they saw to be this view, this life, this undeniable proof that everything they'd believed about me was wrong. The elevator chimed. The doors opened. I heard Brooke gasp. I turned slowly. They stood frozen in the entrance. Ryan wore old jeans and a wrinkled button-down shirt, deep circles under his eyes, several days of stubble. He'd lost weight. His clothes hung loose on his frame. He was no longer the confident man who'd thrown me out, just a broken shadow. Brooke stood beside him, one hand on her very pregnant belly. She was 8 months now, due in late February. She wore a faded yellow maternity dress that had probably once been cheerful but now just looked cheap and worn. Her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail. No makeup. Her skin had the gray pallor of someone crushed by stress. The contrast was perfect. Them, desperate, exhausted, defeated. Me, calm, composed, in control. "Hello, Ryan? Hello, Brooke?" I kept my voice even. "Welcome to my home." "Mom," Ryan's voice cracked. How is this possible?" "How is what possible, Ryan? Be specific." His eyes swept over the penthouse, the designer furniture, the original artwork, the marble countertops visible in the kitchen, the terrace beyond the windows. "All of this apartment, this life. When you left, you didn't have money," I finished for him. "Resources? Value? Let's use the correct words, Ryan. When you threw me out, you assumed I had nothing. You were wrong." Brooke's eyes filled with tears. Not tears of joy at seeing me, tears of realizing what they'd lost when they'd treated me like garbage. "Please, sit down," I gestured to the cream leather sofa. "We have much to discuss." They sat like robots, still dazed. I took the single chair facing them, the power position. "Can I offer you something? Sparkling water? Coffee? I have an excellent Sumatra blend I just purchased from a roaster in Capitol Hill. Or perhaps wine? I have a 2019 Napa Cabernet that's quite nice." I was deliberately naming expensive things, making sure they understood my current standard of living. "Water is fine," Brooke whispered. Ryan couldn't speak. He just stared. I went to the kitchen, all stainless steel Sub-Zero and Wolf appliances, and poured filtered water into Waterford crystal glasses. I could hear them whispering frantically. "How did she get all this?" "I don't know. When she left, she could barely afford a motel." "Ryan, did your dad have money saved that you didn't know about?" "No. We lived on his government salary. That was it." I returned with the drinks and sat down. "Now, you said you wanted to talk. I'm listening." Ryan cleared his throat, trying to regain some composure. "Mom, first, we're sorry. We're so sorry for how we treated you." "Sorry for what, specifically?" He looked confused. For everything?" "No, Ryan. I need you to be specific. What are you sorry for? Tell me exactly what you did." This was important. They needed to name it, own it. Brooke spoke up, her voice shaking. "We're sorry for kicking you out of your home, for giving you only 1 week, for saying cruel things, for treating you like you were worthless." "What cruel things, Brooke? Repeat them. Say the words you said to me." She went pale. I said you were a burden, that you never worked, that Robert knew it but didn't have the courage to say it, that my baby needed a stable home, not—" She started crying. "Not the complaints of a bitter old woman." "Good. At least now you're being honest." I took a sip of my water. "Continue." Ryan looked like he might be sick. "Mom, we were wrong. We were stressed and scared about money and the baby, and we took it out on you. You didn't deserve that." "No, I didn't." I set down my glass. "But here's what interests me. You weren't sorry when you threw me out. You weren't sorry for the 6 months I spent in poverty. You're sorry now. Why?" Ryan opened his mouth, then closed it. "I'll tell you why," I said calmly. "You're sorry because you've discovered I have money. You're sorry because now you need something from me. You're sorry because you miscalculated. That's not the same as genuine remorse, Ryan." "That's not fair," he protested weakly. "Isn't it? Tell me, if you hadn't found out I live in a penthouse, would you have called me? If you weren't facing foreclosure, would you have apologized?" Silence. That's what I thought. I stood and walked to the windows, my back to them. In the reflection, I could see them sitting on the edge of the sofa like defendants waiting for a verdict. "Let me tell you a story," I said. "It's about a woman named Lori Ann Harrison. For 45 years, she was the perfect wife. She cooked every meal, cleaned every corner, raised a son with every ounce of love she had. She never complained, never asked for recognition, never demanded anything for herself." I turned to face them. Then her husband died, and her son, the boy she'd sacrificed everything for, threw her out of her home like trash. gave her 1 week to leave, called her a burden, laughed when she begged to stay. Brooke was crying openly now. That woman spent 6 weeks living in a motel that cost $47 a night. She ate day-old bread. She lost 11 pounds. She applied for jobs and was told she was too old. She was humiliated, broken, alone. I walked closer to them. But then something interesting happened. That woman discovered her husband had protected her in ways she never knew. He'd left her resources, power, the ability to defend herself. I picked up the leather portfolio from the coffee table. Do you know what the most valuable thing is, Ryan? Not money, information. And I have a lot of information about you. I opened the portfolio and pulled out the first document. This is the private investigator's report on your current financial situation. Would you like me to read it aloud? Ryan's face went white. You hired a private investigator? I did. David Michael Torres, formerly of the Seattle Police Department. Very thorough. I scanned the page. Let's see. Ryan Michael Bennett, fired from Cascade Construction on October 7th, 2024. Currently collecting unemployment of $1,200 per month. Credit card debt, $23,450. Credit score, 612. I pulled out another page. Brooke Stephanie Bennett, quit Tech Vista Marketing on August 30th, 2024. Current income, 0. Credit card debt, $31,890. Credit score, 591. Brooke buried her face in her hands. Joint debts, I continued. Mercedes-Benz GLE 350, purchased September 15th, 2024 for $65,000. Current loan balance, $52,100. Monthly payment, $847. I pulled out another document. And then there's the house, 847 Oakwood Drive. The house where I lived for 45 years. The house you took from me. I looked at Ryan. Current mortgage balance, $287,500. Monthly payment, $2,140. Currently 3 months in arrears. Total past due, $6,420. I set the documents on the coffee table in front of them. On November 15th, 2024, Olympic National Bank filed a foreclosure notice. They were going to take the house. Were? Ryan looked up, confused. Yes, were. Because on December 6th, 2024, the mortgage was sold. I pulled out another document, the mortgage assignment papers. It was purchased by Harbor Investments Group, LLC for $245,000 cash. I let that sink in. Do you know who owns Harbor Investments Group, Ryan? His hands were shaking. No, I smiled. I do. The room went completely silent. That's right. I own the mortgage on the house you stole from me. You don't owe Olympic National Bank anymore. You owe me. $287,500, plus $6,420 in past due payments, plus late fees and interest that accumulate daily. Brooke made a sound like a wounded animal. But wait, I said. There's more. I pulled out the property deeds. Your father left me 12 parcels of land around Seattle, land he bought in the 1970s for almost nothing, land that's now worth over $3 million. I spread the deeds across the table. I sold 4 parcels in November for $889,000. I used that money to buy this penthouse, to hire attorneys, to purchase your mortgage, to build a new life. I pulled out my bank statements. Current liquid assets, $687,287. Remaining property value, approximately $2.2 million. Total net worth, approximately $3.1 million. I sat down in my chair and looked at them calmly. The worthless old woman you threw out is a multimillionaire. The burden you kicked to the curb owns your house. The bitter, complaining mother you mocked is the only thing standing between you and homelessness. Ryan was crying now, too. Mom, please, we're so sorry. We didn't know. If we'd known Dad left you money— Stop. My voice was sharp. That's exactly the problem, Ryan. You're sorry because I have money. Not because you hurt me. Not because you betrayed me. Because I have resources you want. That's not true, he protested. Isn't it? Let me ask you something. If I'd found this money before you threw me out, would you have treated me differently? Would you have been kinder? More respectful? He couldn't answer. Of course you would have, because you don't respect me as a person. You only respect me as a resource. That's the saddest thing about all of this. You never saw me as your mother, just as something to be used or discarded depending on my utility. I stood and walked to the terrace doors. Here's what's going to happen. You have two choices. I turned back to face them. Choice 1, I accelerate the full mortgage amount. You have 72 hours to pay $287,500 plus fees, or I foreclose. You lose the house. You're evicted. And I make sure, through my connections in this city, that Ryan doesn't get another construction job in Seattle. You'll have to leave. Start over somewhere else with nothing. Brooke was sobbing uncontrollably. Choice 2, you accept my terms. All of them. No negotiation, no modifications. You do exactly what I say, or you get choice 1. What are the terms? Ryan asked, his voice barely a whisper. I picked up the contract James Alonzo had prepared. Term 1, you publicly apologize to me. Not privately, publicly. You go to every neighbor on Oakwood Drive and you tell them the truth, that you kicked your mother out of her home, that you said cruel, hateful things, that you treated her like trash, that you were wrong. Ryan swallowed hard. Okay. Term 2, the mortgage arrears, the $6,420 you're behind, is forgiven, wiped clean. You start fresh. They looked up, surprised. Term 3, the house at 847 Oakwood Drive will be placed in a trust. The beneficiary is your child, my grandchild. You two can live there until the child turns 18. At that point, they decide what happens to the property. You don't own it. You're custodians. Okay, yes. Ryan nodded frantically. Term 4. Ryan, you start work on Monday, January 20th at Meridian Construction Company. Starting salary, $5,000 per month. I've already arranged it. You'll have full benefits, including health insurance that will cover Brooke's delivery and the baby's medical care. You did that? I did, but understand this. You'll have a supervisor. Me. Indirectly, of course. One late arrival, one instance of the arrogance and entitlement you've shown me, one single indication that you haven't learned your lesson, you're fired. And I'll ensure you don't work in construction in this city again. I understand. Term 5. Brooke, you'll receive full prenatal care at Swedish Medical Center. The same hospital where you were born, Ryan. I'm paying for it. Top obstetrician, private room when you deliver, everything you need. Brooke looked up, tears streaming down her face. Why? Why would you do that after what we did? Because that baby is innocent. Because I'm going to be a grandmother. And because, unlike you, I don't punish innocent people for other people's sins. I pulled out another document. Term 6. When my grandchild is born, I will be present at the hospital if I choose to be. I will have regular visitation rights. Not as a favor you grant me, but as a right I've earned. You will not keep me from my grandchild. Of course. Yes. Absolutely, they both said. Term 7. Every major family decision for the next 5 years must be discussed with me first. Jobs, moving, financial decisions, the child's education. You've proven you don't make good decisions on your own. You need oversight. Ryan bristled slightly at this, but Brooke put her hand on his arm. We agree. Term 8. Once a month you'll come here for dinner. All 3 of you, once the baby is born. This isn't about pretending we're a normal, happy family. This is about maintaining communication and ensuring you're keeping your end of this agreement. We'll do it. I picked up a pen and set it on the contract. Term 9, and this is non-negotiable. You will attend family counseling, all 3 of us, once a week for 6 months, then once a month for the following year. We'll work with a therapist to address what happened, why it happened, and how to prevent it from ever happening again. Yes, absolutely. I looked at them both carefully. These terms are binding. If you accept them, you sign this contract. If you break any of these terms, any single one, I trigger choice 1. Immediate foreclosure, eviction, and you're done. Do you understand? Yes, they said together. Are you certain? Because once you sign, there's no going back, no renegotiating, no but we didn't mean or we didn't understand. You're either in completely or you walk away right now. Ryan looked at Brooke. She nodded. We accept, he said. All of it. I handed him the pen. They signed. After they signed, I served lunch on the terrace. We ate mostly in silence. The dynamic had completely changed. They were subdued, almost childlike. I was calm, measured. Halfway through the meal, Brooke spoke quietly. "May I ask you something?" "You may." "Will there ever be a day when you truly forgive us, or will we always just be obligated to you?" It was a fair question. I set down my fork and looked at her, really looked at her. She was 29 years old, pregnant, scared, and for the first time since I'd met her, genuinely humble. "Honestly, Brooke, I don't know yet. Forgiveness isn't something you can schedule. It's not a box you check off. It grows over time, if, and only if, the actions warrant it." "How do we earn it?" "You show up. You do the work. You prove through consistent action over months and years that you've changed, that you understand what you did, that you've become different people." I took a sip of water. "What you need to understand is that the old relationship, the one where I was the doting mother and you were my precious son and daughter-in-law, that relationship is dead. You killed it the day you threw me out of my home. It's gone. We can't resurrect it." Ryan's face crumpled. "But," I continued, "we might be able to build something new, something more honest, something based on mutual respect instead of assumptions and entitlement. It won't be the same. It'll probably never be warm and fuzzy. But it might be real. And real is more valuable than fake happiness." "I'd like that," Ryan said quietly. "So would I," Brooke added. "Then prove it. Not with words, with actions, with time." We finished lunch. Before they left, I walked them to the elevator. "One more thing," I said as they were about to step inside. "The day that baby is born, you call me immediately. Not hours later. Not the next day. Immediately. Do you understand?" "Yes, Mom," Ryan said. For the first time, when he said Mom, it sounded genuine. "Good. Now go. Start your public apologies tomorrow. I'll be checking." The elevator doors closed. I stood in my beautiful penthouse, alone again, and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not happiness, not joy, but peace. The war was over. The battle was won. Now came the harder work, rebuilding. July 22nd, 2025. I sat on my terrace at 7 a.m. with a cup of coffee, watching the sun rise over Puget Sound. The air was cool and clean. A slight breeze carried the scent of salt water and pine. 6 months had passed since that confrontation. True to their word, Ryan and Brooke had gone door to door apologizing. Mrs. Bonita called me the next day, laughing. "Lori, you should have seen them. They came to my house and told me everything." Ryan was crying. Brooke looked like she wanted to die. "They said they'd treated you terribly and they were wrong." I told them, "About time you realized what an extraordinary woman your mother is." The neighborhood knew the truth now, and surprisingly, many of them reached out to me. Invitations to lunch, to book club, to neighborhood gatherings. I was no longer invisible. Ryan had started at Meridian Construction on January 20th, just as I'd arranged. According to my contact there, a senior manager named Patricia Chen, who owed me a favor, he was doing well, arrived early, worked hard, kept his head down, no arrogance, no attitude. "Whatever you did to him, Lori, it worked," Patricia told me. "He's like a different person." Brooke had delivered a healthy baby girl on February 28th, 2025, at 3:47 a.m. They'd called me at 3:52 a.m. I was at the hospital by 4:30 a.m. When they placed my granddaughter in my arms, 7 pounds, 4 ounces, with Ryan's dark hair and Brooke's blue eyes, I felt my heart crack open in a way I didn't expect. They'd named her Lori Ann Bennett, after me. "We wanted to honor you," Brooke had said, tears in her eyes. "We wanted her to know she's named after the strongest woman we know." I cried. For the first time in front of them, I let myself cry. Not tears of pain, tears of hope. We'd been going to therapy. Dr. Rebecca Martinez, a family counselor in Capitol Hill. Once a week, like clockwork. The sessions were hard. Brutal sometimes. Ryan and Brooke had to confront their entitlement, their cruelty, their assumptions. I had to confront my own patterns, the ways I'd enabled, the ways I'd stayed silent when I should have spoken up. It wasn't comfortable, but it was real. They came to dinner once a month, every month. We'd sit on the terrace, the three of us plus baby Lori, and talk. Sometimes about the past, usually about the present, occasionally about the future. The house on Oakwood Drive was immaculate now. Ryan had repainted the exterior, fixed the fence, maintained the yard. He treated it like it was sacred, because now he understood. It wasn't his. It was his daughter's. My remaining 8 properties continued to increase in value. Last month's appraisal, $2,450,000. I'd started a small foundation, the Robert James Harrison Memorial Fund for Elder Financial Education. We offered free financial literacy classes to seniors, helped them understand their rights, taught them how to protect themselves from family financial abuse. I taught the first class myself. 15 women attended, all between 60 and 75, all with stories similar to mine. I was helping others find their strength. Now, on this July morning, as I sat with my coffee watching the city wake up, I thought about what I'd learned. I'd learned that at 66, your life isn't over. It can actually be just beginning. I'd learned that being underestimated is sometimes a strategic advantage. I'd learned that love without boundaries isn't love, it's enabling. I'd learned that financial independence isn't about greed. It's about freedom, agency, the ability to make choices. I'd learned that forgiveness is possible, but it's not instant. It's a slow, deliberate choice you make over and over again. Most importantly, I'd learned that the greatest victory isn't crushing your enemies. It's finding peace within yourself. My phone buzzed. A text from Brooke. Can we come to dinner tonight instead of next week? Lori smiled for the first time today, and we thought you'd want to see it. I smiled and typed back, yes, come at 6 o'clock. I'll make salmon. I set down my phone and returned to watching the sunrise. Somewhere in this city, my son was getting ready for work. Somewhere my granddaughter was waking up in her crib. Somewhere my daughter-in-law was learning to be a better person. And here, on the 42nd floor of Summit Tower, I sat in peace. Not because everything was perfect, but because I'd learned that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is survive. And then, when you've survived, you choose whether to destroy or to rebuild. I chose rebuilding. Not for them. For me. Because at the end of the day, revenge might feel sweet for a moment, but peace lasts forever. I stood and walked to the terrace railing. Below me, Seattle stretched out in every direction. The city where I was born. The city where I'd loved, lost, been broken, and rebuilt myself. A ferry crossed Puget Sound, heading toward Bainbridge Island. Seagulls circled overhead. The Space Needle stood proud against the morning sky. I took a deep breath of clean morning air, and I smiled. Because I was Lori Ann Harrison, 66 years old, mother, grandmother, widow, survivor, multimillionaire, free.